What is the most hurtful thing a medical professional has ever said to you? My female doctor, now retired, once told me I had great birthing hips. I'm a male. When I was in middle school until 10th grade, I would get violent nausea anytime I got hungry. It felt like my stomach was on fire, and I would miss a lot of school from feeling like shit, although I was a good student and wasn't falling behind in any way. After a lot of fighting with my mother, who accused me of exaggerating, she agrees to take me to a gastroenterologist to be checked out. Before agreeing to do an endoscopy, the gastro accused me of exaggerating because I was a teen girl, and that's just apparently what young women do. He suggested I was just making up these symptoms for attention, and then asked me point blank if I was lying about my pain level to skip school, and suggested I had a mental health issue I was trying to cover for. I had fucking GERD and severe acid reflux, as confirmed by the endoscopy he reluctantly agreed to perform on me. Instead of letting it go, the gastro made a point of angrily telling me that I had the stomach of a 80-year-old man, and must have been intentionally eating in a way to fuck up my stomach. I have a family history of stomach problems and GERD. I don't understand why it was so implausible that my brother could have acid reflux at a young age, but I must be a hysterical liar when I claim to have the same symptoms in my teens. When I was about 4, I got diagnosed with child asthma. Doctor told my mum it was her fault because she decided to have a child despite having asthma herself. WTF? It's not like it's a super rare disease that can be tested in the womb or something, and anyways neither of my parents have it, and yet I've got dumbest lungs myself. In the about 6 months pregnant, with heavy spotting and no noticeable fetal movement. Idiot doctor is unable to find the baby's heartbeat. Just looks up at me and says, "Yep, probably dead in there." He couldn't possibly have said it in a more casual, offhand manner. Note: I delivered my son 3 months later, perfectly healthy. Wife took our 2-year-old daughter to the doctor because she was sick, and her behavior seemed to be changing. She couldn't eat or drink. Our local doctor said that's how kids are sometimes and just monitor her behavior. As we were pretty sure there was something definitely wrong, we kept seeing different doctors. Last one said we were acting hysterically and our behavior were a problem. 5 days later our daughter seemed to had a seizure, so we went to the hospital. Our daughter had a brain tumor, and the doctor at the hospital said this should have been recognized sooner. He was astounded that we've seen 5 doctors all blaming us as parents to just be acting up over nothing. I'm sure it's not that bad. The intake nurse at the inpatient psychiatric unit I was checking myself into after a suicide attempt following a sexual assault. Ada. Thank you to folks who commented or PM''D me. I am okay. I did a short stay at inpatient, and everyone else who worked there, and, honestly and maybe more significantly, everyone else who was also staying there, was kind, thoughtful, helpful, and seemed to be much better at their jobs. This was about 2 years ago now. Things are better but not perfect. I think that sometimes, that is hard, especially for people who are in my life. They seem to be waiting for a version of me that is perfectly fine, and I am not sure she exists anymore. But it is better than it was, most of the time. Sometimes it is harder, or at least similar, but I am still here, and sometimes, being still here is okay being the only success of the day. I have my work, I have my son, I have my circle of people who really stuck by me, and that's a lot to hold on to. He asked me if I felt lonely. I said I don't think of myself as lonely. He wrote down lonely and underlined it. Edit. Thank you kind strangers for gold and silver. I'll show it to my friendo. I don't know why, but this strikes me as particularly funny. As if the doctor looked at you, narrowed his eyes and then wrote it and underlined the word. That's pretty much how it happened. I guess I just give of lonely vibes. Different kind of doctor, but a dentist. After poking that sharp piece of steel into my not dead yet gums, "Oh come on, it doesn't hurt that much." After I jumped and said ow. I looked at him, got up and walked out. I now have a very nice dentist. I went to get a lump on my groin checked out, and had to remove my underpants. The doctor started a whole speech about size isn't everything, which isn't what I went there for. Similar thing happened to me when I was 14. I was getting a physical exam, and during the turn and cough portion of the exam my doctor said, "Don't worry, it'll grow more." That stung a little bit. I had gained a lot of weight around my midsection a few years back, and my period stopped. I was scared, young, and thought I was pregnant, but the tests came back negative. I went to a doctor to have myself checked out, and she did some basic tests before telling me, There is nothing wrong with you, you're just fat. I already had some body confidence issues, but hearing it from my doctor, when I was trying really hard to get in shape, really hurt. I worked hard to lose weight, but my belly wouldn't shrink. I was starting to feel really sick, and went back to the doctor, who again told me it was that I was just fat. I was crushed. A year later I went to the hospital for something unrelated, and it was discovered that I had a giant ovarian cyst, about the size of a newborn. It was throwing off my hormones, making me gain weight, among many other issues. I have since lost weight and I'm feeling super confident now, but that doctor really messed me up for a long time. Similar thing happened to a friend of mine. She was slim, her stomach kept growing and was very firm to the touch. Female doctor 1 told her she was pregnant. My friend said unless it's the second coming of Christ she can't be, as she hasn't had sex for months. Doctor tells her she must have gotten drunk and had blackout sex because she's definitely pregnant, no need for a test. Male doctor 2 was seen for a second opinion, and pretty much straight away realized it's a giant cyst requiring surgery. He said I should be happy carrying around a bit of weight. Because in drought the fattest cows die last. Seriously, WTF. It's all between your ears after missing at least 1, but probably 2 crippling vitamin deficiencies, by not ordering the right test. It took me 2.5 years of thinking I was lazy and pathetic before I went to another doctor and got diagnosed. It's all between your ears. What do you mean? Well, you have brain cancer. Was having digestive issues I eventually learned were a result of my undiagnosed cancer. Doctor suggested I should wipe better. Piggybacking with the hope that people will see this. My psych is an MD and said to me once, doctors hate being confronted with a problem they can't solve. If you feel like the doctor you see isn't giving you adequate care and consideration, you're entitled to a second opinion. Ada. It's my understanding that many insurances here in the US will cover a second opinion, as it's in their best interest to do so. It's less expensive to cover that than it is to pay out due to unnecessary surgery or something that wasn't caught by one doctor. If there's doubt about insurance coverage, call the carrier and ask. Thanks for the silver anon. I went to get an earache checked, and the first thing the doctor said was, yeah, so I'm gonna put you on some medicine for the ear, but we've gotta do something about your face, your acne is absolutely terrible. Thanks, doc. First hospital visit? There's nothing wrong with your foot, now get your shoe back on and get back to work, you fucking malingerer. After a solely visual inspection. 2 days of getting smoked all day long. Second hospital visit. Why are you walking on that foot? It's obviously broken. Someone get that soldier some crutches. Getting out of the army, you are 100% healthy. My medical record was about 6 inches thick. Went to a civilian doctor and they were astonished anyone would say that. I am rated 80% disabled. My mother and grandfather were both injured in the army. They will do everything in their power to claim that you are healthy, because if you are injured, they pay your medical bills for life. They tried to tell Grandpa that losing all of his teeth and having a crack down his forehead did not qualify him for a Purple Heart. Edit. Insert cringy surprise at how this blew up here. Story. Grandpa was in a tank, and a tank shell bounced off his turret and slammed his head into the other side of the turret. The reason they did not want to recognize his injuries is because he pulled the teeth out himself, they were loose, and refused treatment on the skull fracture. I woke up in the hospital and heard a nurse running out saying he's awake. The doctor comes into the room and tells me to move my toes. I asked them where I am and what's going on. He just gets more insistent that I move your toes. I asked again where I was and that was going on. He almost yells at me, move your toes. I said I am moving my toes, and immediately he says you will never walk again. That's how I found out I was a paraplegic at 21 years old. I had been in a single car wreck and was thrown 70 to 80 feet from the car, and my vertebrae was dislocated and laying next to another one. I don't remember the car wreck, but that exchange with the doctor is burned into my brain, and that was 31 years ago. Edit 1. Damn, this blew up. Thank you to you all for your comments. I had a seatbelt on but went off a small hill next to the interstate after clipping an end of the guardrail. Flipped the car down the hill and seatbelt gave way under the pressure, and I went out the driver door window. My back collapsed around the door sill and dislocated one vertebra next to the one below it. I'm a big guy, 6'4" and 235 at the time, and the force was too much for the seat structure. I found out all these details over the next few weeks while I was in rehab. That is really, really fucked. I work for hospital billing, and I often know before the patient does that they will be permanently paralyzed, because typically they aren't told until they ask or things have calmed down enough for them to be told in an acceptable way. I'm sorry that happened to you. Holy hell. I'm speechless. I'm so sorry they told you like that. I just don't know how you could be in so much pain being so young. I'm not going to be able to write you a prescription. My response was, you're a dipshit. I came in because I was hurt at work, doing heavy construction. I never asked for a prescription in the first place. I had assumed I was vetting an x-ray to see if I had broken anything. People are age-gating pain now? Geez. I hope you were okay though. You're too young to have back problems like that. Well no shit asswhoop. Well now I'm 24 and fell 2 stories at work. Had a DR tell me you're too young to have back pain. Yeah, I fucking wish that's how this worked, doc. I did a video chat service to talk to a doctor for 15 minutes. I told her my symptoms and thoughts since we were low on time. I had been very sick for weeks, possible urinary tract infection and respiratory infection. Also gave my other ideas from my symptoms. She told me I had valley fever and told me all about it over chat, and we got cut off at 15 minutes. I got her final email which should have a prescription in it, and was told she actually thought I had somatic symptom disorder aka that I was making all of this up and was perfectly fine. Her prescription was for a fucking psychologist. She told me in detail about my possible valley fever, even though I said I hadn't been to the areas he said it was prevalent. I made an appointment with my normal doctor and had a few tests ran. Had a respiratory infection and a freaking kidney infection, 10 or so days of meds and I was fine. My gosh, I was so angry at that quack. I got the same somatoform bullshit from a rheumatologist I got sent to for a finger, causing me so much pain I could barely use my hand. Went to a hand specialist who did exploratory surgery on this painful lump. Turns out I had Dupuytren's nodule tangled up in a ligament, and that ligament had to be removed, and it required a transplant. Somatoform this bastard.